Welcome to our small business podcast brought to you by Frontpoint, Utah's premier managed service provider, www.frontpoint-it.com. So today our topic is Office 2016. Office 2016 will be coming out later this fall. There's no set release date at this time, but there has been some interesting bits regarding the release that the Mac version of it has already been released for 365 clients.
Correct. So Office 2016 is currently available to Office 365 subscribers for the time being. Outlook has been greatly upgraded for the Mac release. It now talks to the Exchange server properly rather than using POP or SMTP, which also means that your Exchange server needs to be on Exchange 2010 Service Pack 2 or higher. The Windows version of Office 2016, like Dan was saying, will be coming out later this year. We do not have an exact release date yet. However, the preview is available to Office 365 subscribers.
I'm Dan Stanford, by the way.
And I'm Jeremy Wright.
Jeremy, what's you've been running the preview edition of Office 2016 on your PC. You've been running what for 2 months?
More like 6 months, I think, since it was available.
What are your thoughts? What do you like about it?
Office 2016 is not going to be a new feature release version. It's not going to be a major upgrade in that you're not going to notice any giant leaps forward in the actual interface or anything with it. It's more of a refinement and iteration release. So they're refining the current version, they're polishing the user interface and adding small little things. Overall, it's going to work the same as Office 2013 and look fundamentally the same. There's a little bit of small changes in the user interface, but overall it's pretty much the same. It just has stability improvements, which is always a good thing, I guess. If you're still in Office 2010, this would probably be the time to upgrade to 2016. I wouldn't go 2010, then 2013. I would just go straight to 2016.
2016 looked a little more modern, kind of that clean, refined look. It's kind of one thing that struck me about it.
What my favorite thing about Office 2016, and this is probably like just a small use case, is when you're using Outlook and you go to attach a file, it pulls up your recent documents, which is fascinating. So whether it's on SharePoint or whether it's on your local machine or a network drive, it pulls up that you just had that document open and asks you if you want to attach it, which I think is awesome. You can also tell with Office 2016 that one of the improvements they're making is they're trying to make it more seamless with cloud services. Yes. So SharePoint,
that's the big deal, yes.
Or 365, yeah.
So to go back to the Outlook and the attachment thing, so you can be messing around in Excel, finish your Excel spreadsheet that you want to email off, jump over to Outlook, compose your email, and then go to attach a file, and there it is, one of your recents, that Excel that Excel file you're just working on, drop it in, off you go. 2016, probably the biggest thing, and I've got a list here of kind of the major points of what it does, but one of the biggest things is the cloud integration, in particular with SharePoint and then of course Office 365. Much better ways of saving files and retrieving files, and just bringing those two together with the shift in how Microsoft is handling things, moving kind of more toward the cloud, and this is that version of Office that is sharing that vision. Office 2013 had a lot of it built into it, but this is going to be the major step in that direction. But just like you said, Jeremy, I totally agree with that. The GUI itself is pretty much the same.
Not only are they moving towards a cloud, but they're also becoming more platform agnostic in that they're not playing the game of we're going to punish you if you're not running Windows. Hence why we're seeing the new release from Mac. They've accepted that people are going to use whatever device they want to use, but they're allowing people to use Office on those devices, which makes it a lot easier for companies that are constantly dealing with documents, so you don't have to worry about file format issues between different people. It hasn't been as big of an issue in the past couple of years. Most programs are pretty forgiving on that, but there can be weird formatting things, but you don't have to worry about that anymore. Now that everybody on every type of device, for the most part, there may be some weird outliers. I don't want to promise that you can use it on everything, but for the most part, on most devices, you can use the same version of Office that your colleagues and coworkers are using and be able to use that file format back and forth, which is a huge step forward for Microsoft.
And to prove that point, the fact that Office 2016 is available first on the Mac platform is massive. I mean, historically, Macs have always been about 1 or 2 years behind, and then they're still, frankly, very feature poor compared to the PC version of it. But we're seeing real change here. So some of the improvements in Office 2016 is higher dots per inch, higher DPI in Office itself. Now, what? Okay, so you've got a laptop that's got a ridiculously high resolution screen on it. In order for the icons not to look, just microscopic little dudes, you have to increase the DPI in Windows itself to make everything look larger and kind of look a little bit more normal. Well, there's been some restrictions built into Windows and Office on how far that could go. But this new 2016, they realized the hardware is increasing, or the resolution is increasing, and so finally Office itself will be able to keep up with that trend. Jeremy talked about the Outlook attachments. Be able to pick your not favorites, but most recent items. And then, there's a new feature in Outlook. This one just seems really fascinating to me. I hope it works right. It's called the clutter folder. Yeah, so as email comes in, it kind of learns. And so, for example, when you get emails from, say, Bath & Body Works or Old Navy or Target, stuff like that, it'll go to a separate folder, and Outlook will do this automatically, and it'll call it your clutter folder. So it's emails that you perhaps want, but definitely not, necessary for your business function itself. So it's kind of like a weak version of junk mail filtering a little bit.
I can tell you exactly where that comes from. So about a little bit less than a year ago, Microsoft bought a company called Acompli. Yes. And Acompli had a fantastic email application that ran on iOS and iPad and Android devices. And they bought that, and then they came out about a month later and rebranded it as Outlook for iOS and Outlook for Android. And in that application, you have your focused inbox, is what they call it, and then your other inbox.
Oh, that's right.
And so what it does is it goes through and it filters things that are like newsletters, and it doesn't notify you when you receive those emails. It doesn't pop up. And then it determines that for you, and then you can tell it to move to focused inbox or move to other, and then it will learn from now on the emails of that type to go back and forth. So I'll bet you they're using the same kind of programming and thought process behind that, exactly what that is, which is really good, by the way. I enjoy that side of it. I like being able to have the other where it's like coupons for different things, where I still want to look at those, but I don't need a notification on my phone that I got that email.
Yep, and you don't need the pop-up, and you don't need filling up your inbox, because you walk in the morning and you've got 50 emails sitting there in your inbox. It's a little intimidating. Where if we got rid of that clutter, if you will, and you only had a few business-related emails, kind of makes your day run a little smoother. Some other bits in 2016, Office 2016, is real-time co-authoring of Word documents. So they're taking that to the next step. You have been able to in Office 2013 using SharePoint. That's the key. You have to have SharePoint in the mix on this, where two people can be in a Word document at the same time. Well, apparently they're taking it even further with 2016, and even stuff like cursor movements and stuff like that. It apparently there was a lag before when two people were in a Word document. Apparently now it's real time, and you can see the edits as they're occurring. So imagine 2 or even 3, 4 people all in the same Word document at once. You can see, what the other person's doing while you're doing it. You could be across the country. Some interesting possibilities there with that. And then in Outlook, there's another feature with attachments. So if your file is, say, in SharePoint, and you want to attach that file from SharePoint and send it to somebody, you now have an option where you can send, instead of sending the document itself, you can just send a link straight out of Outlook that just points to SharePoint.
So before, you would have to go into SharePoint, share the document,
Yes.
copy the link, then paste it into your email.
Yep.
Now that'll be integrated.
Now you can do it all from Outlook. So when you go up to attach and you pick a file from SharePoint, it'll say, how do you want to send it? Do you want to send it as a classic attachment, as an embedded attachment or as a cloud attachment. And you can pick either one of those. And so if you send it as a cloud attachment, it automatically sets up the sharing for that document out of SharePoint and just takes care of that. And then, of course, we already talked about the cloud improvements in 2016.
Real quick on that note, what would you rather receive? A cloud attachment, an embedded attachment, or a legacy attachment?
Most of the time legacy attachments, but I can see a huge bid on it if, because we'll get calls about people trying to send massive attachments, and that would resolve that right off the bat. You would no longer need to worry about how large the attachment is that you're trying to send, because you just send that cloud, the cloud attachment, the little link in the email, and you're done. And the other person just pulls it from your SharePoint. It could be hundreds, it could be, it could be a gig or more even.
This literally happened to one of our clients about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
She was trying to send an attachment to somebody who was too large, so she uploaded it to their SharePoint site and then copied the link. And she said, I want to make sure that they can't edit this. I just want them to be able to look at it. And you can select those options when you're in SharePoint doing the link. They can only view the attachment. She sent over the link, and that was all she had to do. And it completely changed the way that they send attachments now. They don't have to worry about the size limits or people editing documents and changing them and sending them back to them. You can have much more control over that.
Now here's another bit. Because it is a cloud attachment and that file is still in SharePoint, that attachment would continue to live even with updates. So for example, if you gave the person editing permissions, they could go edit that document. You just simply go to your SharePoint site like normal, and you would see that that document has been edited by that other person. No longer do you have to do the back and forth with the document. Here, I made these changes, you check it out, you make the changes, kick it back to them. There's no more back and forth. You're now working with the same document.
And on that same note, like we were talking about earlier, you can work on the same document at the same time. And then you can actually pull up like a comments pane on the right side if you're using the online version. I believe also the desktop version does the same thing. You can have the comments,
yes.
And you can see a comment. So you comment on something, a change that you made, and say, what do you think about this? And the person has the ability to respond, but they're not in the finished version of the document. It's just in the comments if whatever you're using has the ability to see those comments.
And then if you are using Skype for Business, which was formerly called Link, while you're in there both editing that document, with one click, you can just select them and fire up a conversation with them, whether it's a instant message or a full-blown video phone call with them, just right off the bat like that. Let's talk about some interesting trends that we're seeing in the IT world. One thing that I think has been rather interesting is to see some of our older clients that have been doing things the same way honestly for decades. There's some clients that we've been working with for well over 20 years, and to see them actually starting to embrace more and more of the technology. It's something as simple as faxing. The fact that faxing is going away, and even these older clients, to send them, say, an invoice or send them documentation via email was just unheard of even 5 years ago. But now, I can send them email. They know that it's there, and they're actually using this technology. And these are individuals. There's a firm that I'm thinking of in particular, some attorneys that are near retirement. They're even embracing this. So the movement forward, just using technology and using email, while that doesn't sound groundbreaking, if you will, it's becoming extremely prevalent everywhere. And some of you guys are going to listen to this podcast and go, well, of course I've been doing that. But I'm talking about the generation that is approaching 60 right now. Even those guys are willing to use this technology.
There's actually something I want to talk about in a trend in business. I want to talk about an application called Slack.
Yeah, okay. We've been using it for a bit now.
What it means for small businesses. First off, what is Slack? It's kind of hard to wrap your head around what it is.
Very true.
It's essentially an instant messaging program that is geared towards businesses overall. So it allows us to create channels, and you can instant message people in those. You can post a message to that channel, and everybody within your organization that has joined that channel can see it. You can also send each other messages. You can upload attachments through it, not to share attachments, but just like to upload an image or an interesting thing that you found. I wouldn't use it for like sharing back and forth, but it keeps a history of everything that you've typed in there. What I wanted to talk about more is, why is Slack fun and useful for a business? We are a small business. We don't have 50 employees. We have less than that. But it actually has helped us, in my opinion, with our communication, even when somebody is 5 to 10 feet away from you.
I think one of the nicest things is, like you said, the channels that are in Slack. So if somebody posts something in, say, the general channel, then I already know immediately, I have a sense of what that message is about, and then I can prioritize it. We have other channels that are, more for fun. We have channels specific to clients. So as those messages and as those Slacks come in, I can immediately know what level of priority and what level of attention I'm going to give that right off the bat. Another thing that I like about it, it's free.
There are paid versions where they have more storage and more features, but the free version is actually very feature rich.
Yes, and their company just had an evaluation. Yes,
$2 billion, and they have over 100 million users, daily users. A lot of large Fortune 500 companies are using it in their business as a communication tool between departments, between employees.
You can also Slack messages, individually. You can say, I just want to send a message. I can just send a message to, say, Jeremy, back and forth. You can also set up, what is the term they use? Are they bots that will go out and retrieve information? Why don't you talk about, because you set that up.
Well, there's different APIs, is what we call them, where they can actually talk to other programs for specific things. One of our less work-focused channels, we have a bot that's on Twitter, and whenever a specific company or a specific person tweets something on Twitter, it posts it to Slack for us, because we don't want to be in Twitter all day and waste our time in there. So instead, if something important comes up, if Microsoft tweets something, or if Apple tweets something, we want to be able to see that, or any other company or anybody in particular, it will post that in Slack for us so we can take a look at it. We also use it for our ticketing system. So if a client sends us a ticket with a problem, it posts it to Slack so that we can have the real-time desktop notifications that somebody has posted something there. You can do things like email. You can do things like you can have other things tie into it to allow it to be able to post that, so you can get those notifications without having to be in that application all day, which is very nice to see.
The program itself has versions for the phone, for your smartphones, for your iPads, obviously your PC, your Mac, and the like. So in the evening, if a tweet or something comes in regarding a subject that I'm interested in, I get a little pop-up on my phone, and I can just swipe on it and it drops me right into Slack. I can see a very brief description and then the link, and I can select the link and go from there. But even just it's kind of, I hate to put it this way, try to pigeonhole exactly what this program does, but it's kind of like instant messaging with some intelligence and then some categorization to it. So it's not just for chatting back and forth. It really does have that sense of a business purpose to it, or a purposeful use.
One of my favorite things with it, because I can tell a lot of people are probably thinking in their head right now, well, why don't you just email somebody? Well, if I want to send an email to Dan, not only does Dan receive emails from me, but he receives emails from clients, from vendors, from junk, wherever. So he has an inbox with 75 new emails in it right now. If I send him an email, my email gets lost into that. And so I can't talk to him directly through that email. Instead, if I post it in Slack, the only people in Slack are our company. So I know that he's going to see that and be able to take a look at that. And not only is it going to be there, it's going to be in Slack, and it's going to stay there until somebody deletes it or until it gets archived after a certain amount of time. So I know he's going to be able to see that, and I know he's going to get the attention there. Another thing it's good for is messaging back and forth, like you said, on personal messages, so everybody doesn't see it. But it doesn't have the same stigma of, say, if you go into the boss's office and you're talking with him and everybody is wondering what you're doing in there.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Instead, you can just message them because it may not be anything of any use to anybody. It may be something stupid having to do with payroll or HR or something along those lines. But you're not sitting in the boss's office talking to the boss. Instead, you just send them a message on there. And it allows you to kind of separate that this is only for work. It's, I want to say, more like a social network just for work. And the more employees you have, the more beneficial it probably is. We use it for sharing links back and forth of, hey, check out this article. Or, oh, this person has this problem. Here's how to fix it. And here's a link to it really quick. Oh, I just found this interesting photo about one of our clients that we were working with. Check this out. We use it for documenting things as well. If we have to document a case while we're on site or something, we can post the photos in there and have everybody have access to them and then put them into the proper places later. So not only can I take the photos while I'm on site and put them in Slack, but then when I get back to my desk and I have more time, I can take them and put them where they need to go. So it's kind of fun in that regard as well.
There's a bot, a little robot that's built into it that will trigger itself on particular words. And so you can do some workflow type things. So if an employee in your organization were to Slack something about a particular client, you could see to it that this person or that person is notified about that Slack directly. So it's not a full-blown workflow. It's nothing like, for example, what's built into SharePoint, but there is some degree of that in there.
If you guys want to check it out, you can go to https://slack.com. You can go in there. They have a video there. Go check it all out. They'll tell you who their clients are, who's using it, and kind of show you all about it. So go check it out if you're interested. Highly recommend that you guys check it out.
We're more than happy to help you guys set it up too, of course. By no means is it a difficult setup, but we can show you the ropes if you were interested in that. Let's wrap this up.
I actually have a pop quiz for Dan.
Oh no.
I was
trying to avoid that.
This has been coming up with our clients quite a bit recently, and so I kind of wanted to put all of this together. So I wanted to see his candid thoughts on wireless networks.
Wireless networks.
So I have a couple of questions.
Go for it.
Okay, so what are wireless networks good for, and what should they be used for?
Wireless networks are fantastic for incidental use. So, for example, smartphones, iPads, somebody walks in with a laptop, wants to sit down. Let's say, you've got your laptop and you head into the lunchroom, you can pop that laptop open and, work on your Word documents, check your email, that sort of stuff. It is not intended and is not a good fit for continual, constant use. It is not a wired replacement for your office. While it is not impossible to use it that way, you will not be as happy in regard to having a wireless connect or a wired connection.
So next question is, at my house, I have what is called a wireless router. Why can't I bring in my wireless router into the house and just plug it into the wall here and start using that just like I would? Why does the IT department call it what I need an access point? What's the difference between an access point and a router?
For the most part, homes use what's called a wireless router. And businesses use what is called a wireless access point. The big key difference between them is router and access point. So a router is intended to have that internet connection coming into it. It then changes it from an internet connection to your home LAN, your home network connection, and then goes from there. And that's what it's intended for. It wants to change the connection that it's getting into a new network for itself. So if you bring a wireless router into the office and you plug it in, what's going to happen is you're going to start to overwrite what has already been set up on that office network. And it basically causes chaos because you've got competing things inside the network trying to tell computers what to do. It is a guaranteed way to bring your network straight into the ground.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yep. Too many roosters in the hen house. So a wireless access point, on the other hand, which is what businesses should be using as a wireless access point, is essentially taking a wired Ethernet connection, the Cat5 that comes out of the wall, and imagine just taking that and then just sending that into the air. So that wired connection into the air. And you will notice with a wireless access point, it only has one network connection. It just has that feed coming into it. That's it, and then it just broadcasts that feed throughout the network. It doesn't try to change the network, anything like that. It's just a means from going from wired to wireless. And in all honesty, they're much more simple devices than the wireless router. Very different purposes. The unfortunate thing is they have very similar names. And if you run over to Target or Walmart or anything like that, they're almost all wireless routers. And you go, oh, look, there's a wireless device that should work on my network. Please don't do it.
Some wireless routers can be used in an access point mode, but it would have to be configured specifically for that. But it won't be as good of a quality as a business access point. I like to think of the name access point. It's giving you an access point to that network, as opposed to a router is making its own network and routing the information across it. So if you ever have trouble trying to figure out which one you need, just remember an access point provides you access to a network, router creates a network and routes the traffic through it.
And to make a wireless router actually function in a business network takes guys like us to do that sort of thing. It's not a simple, straightforward thing to do.
Would have to be built in at the beginning of building the network as opposed to adding it in later.
Yes. We've had multiple phone calls over the years of people bringing wireless routers into their network and just driving everything straight into the ground. And it causes a real challenge for us because now we can't get in from remote, and it usually requires us to go on site to resolve it. It's one of those things that call your IT guy or call us first. We'd be more than happy to help.
So the next three questions are kind of all put together. I have 100 megabit internet connection. I have 5 people on my wireless, yet we're not getting 100 megabits across our wireless connection. We're doing the speed test. We have a $500 enterprise access point. Why can I not get 100 megabits for each of these people when we're on wireless? What's going on with that?
The big trick with wireless networks is everybody is sharing the same amount of bandwidth. So if your wireless access point is capable of broadcasting at, say, 100 megabits per second, and you've got 5 people on it, that 100 megabits per second gets divided among those 5 people. So now all of a sudden, everybody is simply getting 20 megabits per second. And then you need to throw in the other little traffic and broadcasts and things bouncing, the waves bounce off the walls and all that sort of stuff. So in all reality, you're probably going to see around 10 or 15 megabits per second. That's the nature of the beast.
And you could have a peak of 100 megabits per second, but then you'd be taking the bandwidth from all of the other people.
Yes.
So if there had no traffic, you could get 100 if your device allows it. That's another key factor, is the device that you're connecting to it. So there's peak where people are pulling all this bandwidth and other people aren't pulling as much. But like Dan said, basically it gets divided up into even sections per device. But what are the other factors that affect signal strength and speed of a wireless network?
Signal strength and speed of the network is also environmentally dependent. Things like walls, glass doors, can reflect that signal, bounce it around, it can cause all sorts of interesting havoc. The other thing too one cannot fully realize oftentimes is really the amount of Wi-Fi devices that are in a business environment. You may sit back and you go around and count it up and say, okay, well, we've got 5 laptops, so we have 5 devices here. But meanwhile, you have 20 employees, they all have smartphones, and half of them have brought their tablets to work too. And so all of a sudden you add that all up and you're approaching more like 40 people are actually on that Wi-Fi network. And again, that bandwidth just gets divided up among them, and your environmental conditions. It's great for web browsing, it's great for email, incidental use, but to sit down and to use it day after day and to pull that bandwidth through, you're just going to be disappointed. It's not going to be as responsive nor stable as you would want it to be.
And remember that your devices are still pulling information across the wireless network, even if they're off, or even if they're in, well, not if they're off, but if they're in standby mode, if they're locked, it's still updating in the background. It's a minimal amount, but when you add that up over 40 or 50 people, it can be a significant chunk of bandwidth.
A way to think of wireless networks also is you take a pond, and everybody who has a wireless device itself is putting their finger in the water and tapping the water and making little ripples. And so you've got all these little ripples, and the more little ripples you've got going on, it just creates more and more chaos among that signal. And it makes it harder and harder for the access point to keep track of where everybody is, and consequently the speed goes down.
So I was hoping that section would kind of clear up a lot of questions that we get about wireless, a lot of questions that people have about wireless in general. What is it good for? One of the things I wanted to say real quick about that, the wireless access point or a wireless router will always, as long as it has power, will broadcast that wireless network. But it may not actually be connected to anything. So if you're troubleshooting an issue and you're saying, well, I have wireless, why don't I have internet? That just means that you're connected to that box. It doesn't mean it's actually going anywhere after that. It's just connected to that box. That's a good sign, because that means that box is potentially working, but what's happening after that may not be. So keep that in mind when you're at a coffee shop or you're at a hotel and you're having trouble connecting to the wireless or getting online. You say, I'm connected to the network, I don't understand. Well, you're connected directly to that box. That box is working, but what's going on after that may or may not be.
Because remember that the wireless device itself is still connected to the internet in some manner. And so that box could actually be sitting there with absolutely nothing plugged into it, and you would get that wireless signal, and you can connect to that box, but that's it. There's nothing else connected to it for you to continue along your path.
You can talk to other devices that were connected wireless to it, but that's a whole other thing.
All right.
That's all my pop quiz.
Well, let's wrap this up. Thank you for joining us. Our podcast today is brought to you by Frontpoint. We are here in Utah doing managed services. We're your outsourced IT provider. We're more than happy to help you with any of your IT needs. Feel free to call us or check out our website, www.frontpoint-it.com. And then plug for next week, we're going to be talking about Office 365.
And if you're watching this podcast and you're out of state and you have any questions about IT, maybe you don't necessarily want to hire us to take care of your services, or maybe you do, feel free to give us a call. We're more than happy to answer any questions, or shoot us an email, sales@frontpoint-it.com as well. Thanks for checking it out, guys. I hope to see you next week.
Thank you.